Struck him out. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk him off. Let's Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, the medium large sports network. My name is Jeff Spiegel. That is Scott Geirman. More importantly than everything I just said, Roki freaking Sasaki is a Los Angeles Dodger. Scott, he announces on Instagram himself the name we've been waiting for. You know, we've had lots going on this offseason, but some would say this was the most important guy. He's here, Scott, announcing the news himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. We got him, man. We were joking about last night on stream chat. Everybody here, great to see you. I was like, Jeff, I was like, I told Blake, I was like, I hope that he announces this himself on his own Instagram, on his own social medias. He does. It's always worth the wait. Just had to settle in, get past the chatter. Roki Sasaki's on track to be a Dodger, man.
One of the best prospects in Major League Baseball immediately. There's a lot of places that won't even consider him a prospect because of his age and because of the fact that he's played in the NPB. But if you go and look in the international free agency world, Fangraphs, somebody pointed this out to me, does like a future rating of all the players who are signing international free agency deals right now. The number 2 guy is like a 45 on the scouting sale. Roki Sasaki is a 65. So just to put into context how good this guy is, I'm not saying he's going to be Paul Skeens, but we're talking about a guy that if he were a prospect, Scott, is immediately the best prospect in the Dodgers organization. But he isn't a prospect because he's going to be on the Major League roster for most of this season. He's going to be a huge contributor in one way or another. And so obviously a huge deal for the Dodgers. Let me ask you the question that I know every single person is asking themselves, Scott. How long has this deal been agreed to? Do you think, are you putting the tin hat on and this is a 9, 12, 18-month deal that they just drug out to make look dramatic? Or do you think that seriously today, Sasaki made a decision and picked the Dodgers?
I would say I'm not going to say it came down to the wire, but I'm pretty sure that there were things that with Sasaki, agreed upon between teams, his agent, Joe Wolf, all, the group over there. I'm saying that the Dodgers had a pitch. They had a plan that I'm sure Sasaki and his camp loved and they were ready to go with. Perhaps if they just opened the door and just like you said, for all this time, allowed the Blue Jays or the Padres to put out a better offer, something that would tip the scale. But like we've been talking about the whole time, Jeff, even from the 2024 period, if it was about money, then he should have waited the few extra years. This was purely about Roki Sasaki wanting to come over to Major League Baseball, wanting to join an organization that would provide him with the best possible path to being the best big leaguer he can, and have just an exponential path to exactly that that max contract when he does reach regular free agency here, and he chooses the Los Angeles Dodgers. And like we've laid out for weeks, Jeff, months, I would say, the Dodgers check every box. He's in a 6-man rotation. He's got nothing but veterans around him, player development system. So track record of winning, everything you can want. He makes a correct choice, whether people want to hear it or not. Roki Sasaki's in the best possible place for him.
Yeah, he's under team control for 6 years, so he will be a Dodger through the 2030 season. Arbitration eligible starting in 2027, so following 2027. So 25, 26, 27, he will literally make the league minimum. And then 28, 29, 30, he will be in arbitration before he becomes a free agent. Let's get to a couple super chats here. Sharing Sherpa says, let's go. We got him after the Padres dropped out. I was fine with the Blue Jays, but we got him for 6 years. Let's go. That was the news that broke this morning. Francis Romero reporting that the Padres had moved on. They started signing some of their international free agents. It came down to the Dodgers and Blue Jays. The Blue Jays traded for international free agency money in the middle of this day, Scott. And I was listening to a podcast of somebody talking about a different sport, but they were saying, if I don't know everything, I'm going to try my best to assume the best about the people that know more than me. And I'm looking at the Blue Jays and I'm like, I think this is reason for concern that the Blue Jays are going out and getting international free agency money, because if they don't get Sasaki, that move doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Turns out it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Maybe I shouldn't have given the Blue Jays all that much of the benefit of the doubt, Scott.
I mean, the Blue Jays acquiring that international bonus pool money. I mean, even if you don't land Sasaki, that's a dud for them. I'm sure they're hyped on that. To even be among the finalists, that's something. But finishing second place, it ultimately doesn't matter. You don't get the player. But I would say that for the Toronto Blue Jays. It sucks for the fans. The fans have been dying for something to cling on to. Hopefully they can lock Vladimir Guerrero Jr. down and have something. But the Toronto Blue Jays have been finishing second and third a lot of the time recently. But Jeff, just to that international bonus pool money, I mean, it's early on in this signing window. If they can use that money elsewhere, it mattered to Sasaki. It didn't. You're bound to these contracts. It wasn't going to be just some amount that was going to sway the opinion one way or another. That was a Hail Mary. When I saw that this morning, I was like, give me a break. If he's worried about a couple $1 million, that's people are hitching their wagon onto the wrong side of the argument.
Yeah, look, and I understand, clearly it was a Hail Mary. Again, I would just love to, I hope we get some explanation from the Blue Jays side at some point, because I understand, hey, more international free, all the best guys already have agreements. They've already signed. Having now the Blue Jays are going to have $8 million or whatever left with their original 6, and maybe they go out and sign some of the initial guys, but there isn't, I'll put it this way, there isn't $6 million worth of international free agents left out there once January 17th rolls around, and that's where we're at. And so, as Jeff Passan tweeted out, I'm sorry, Toronto was his final tweet. Yeah. And it's real. As much as we are happy, I don't mind Padres fans being bummed out both this morning. They get a full bad day for them. It was this morning, the news that they're out, and then the day caps off with the news that he's going to the Dodgers, which everybody assumed. But the Blue Jays, it's tough to be a Blue Jays a fan. Stockton Slap says we are going to look silly if we don't repeat now. One thing I want to say, Scott, on this front is, where are you at on expectations for Roki Sasaki in 2025? Obviously, we're going to talk about this a ton on this show, on this platform for the next, month and a half before baseball starts, and then 9 months realistically. But as great as it is that the Dodgers just added Roki Sasaki for the next 6 years, I wonder if there is maybe going to be unrealistic short-term expectations placed on Sasaki for how he contributes in 2025. I think he will contribute, but I think there are voices I respect out there that say hey, keep in mind this kid is young. He's coming over from NPB, that maybe he's not going to be Paul Skeens in 2025, even if he might be a dominant pitcher at some point. So where are you at on maybe realistic expectations? Because Stockton Slaps is saying, if we don't repeat now, as if adding Roki Sasaki dramatically shifts the balance of power in 2025.
I would say for me, I mean, you have to understand, this is a 23-year-old kid. He does have track record pitching, in NPB, but if you look at what he is, Jeff, we've been following this for a bit. I'm going to call him, he's a prospect. He's a polished prospect with all the upside in the entire world. He's got stuff that can reach, that's why he was such a highly touted, player. Everybody who wanted a chance to sign him. But as far as you look at, say, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, he had almost, I think, 970, 980 innings in NPB before coming over. We're talking about Sasaki, who has a little over 400. So there's still time he could have taken to, develop more polished stuff, work on these things, work on the secondary stuff, try to find that fastball for him that he kind of took a step back here. It wasn't a perfect 2024 for him. He dealt with some injury stuff. You saw regression and stuff here. So just like we've been talking about, Ha-Seong Kim coming over to the Dodgers, there will be a buffering period. But with pitchers, I think there's a lot more tinkering you can do. And I think the Dodgers will find a way to get him back to peak performance there, whether it's highlighting his secondary stuff and giving his fastball some time. But I think that he's going to take that jump. He's going to make that step. How fast? That's something that we have to just get him in the organization, let them work with him. I'm very excited. This is something we haven't talked about. I'm very excited for Andrew Friedman and the scouting staff. This is something they've worked on for a long time. I'm sure they're popping some champagne. They've been working on this. Congratulations to them.
Yeah. And I mean, look, there's lots of time to discuss this. Last offseason to land Ohtani and Yamamoto is pretty much the perfect offseason. To follow that up with Blake Snell, Roki Sasaki, re-signing Teoscar, extend Tommy Edman, add Michael Conforto. For all we know, they might not be done. There's a left-handed reliever out there. There's a left-handed reliever out there that may not have a home after the Mets went and got their own left-handed reliever. I mean, the 2-year offseason run that Andrew Friedman's on, I'm not a historian. I don't know if we will ever see a 2-year offseason stretch. We're talking batting 1,000 in a sport where batting 333 is good. Friedman's batting 1,000 for basically 18 straight months.
It's 100% spot on. And chat will agree with this. This is the time where the front office ownership definitely was saying, was met with all of these players, these opportunities for trades, opportunities to extend players, bring it in. And they saw this window as you're going to have to take some financial investments here. This is the perfect time. Yamamoto's coming over. Ohtani's a free agent. And then you have to go all in. Some teams, Jeff, you look around and, I've got a buddy who's a big time Milwaukee Brewers fan. I feel terrible for him. There's nothing you can do. There's one team on the Dodgers who understand the business side and have perfected it. And there's no cap. And I see people talking in chat for a cap in Major League Baseball. Absolutely no chance. The players bargained for this. The league bargained for this stuff. Get out of here. But it's that the Dodgers have figured out the business side to a T. And now you look at opportunity and you look at just Andrew Friedman said it himself. If you're rational about everything, you're going to miss out. And that's what other teams are doing. Sometimes you have to get a little bit crazy and you stack the deck at the time that it's most opportune. And this window you just brought up, Jeff, I love it. This is perfect for the Dodgers. This is exactly what you expect. A front office that comes off a World Series, still has muscles to flex, go out and you do it. You don't just say we're content, because this organization can't be content. Fans are never content in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Stockton Slap. Happy because I'm a Dodger fan. MLB needs a cap. To your point about the cap, collective bargaining, all that, a cap would not have impacted this deal. Like, the Dodgers actually were at a disadvantage with the amount of money they could give him, and he will be making the league minimum for the next 3 years. And so even if there were a salary cap of some sort, Sasaki is not the guy that would necessarily come down and be impacting that. So we got another person hopping in here, Matthew Moreno. Roki Sasaki, Matt, is a Dodger. Finally, you're out of your misery, Matt. You don't have to wait around any longer to find out if he's coming. So give us your thoughts.
I mean, kind of a lot with what you guys were just saying, sort of the expected. I don't know, Jeff, if I would go back, what did you ask, 18 months or 19 months? I don't know if it's been quite that long that this deal was sort of in place, but obviously there was a reason that the Dodgers were reported as kind of a favorite. Going back to early this morning, I was surprised to see that the Padres had been eliminated. According, there were multiple reports that was the case, and I guess indications where it came down to the Dodgers and the Padres. The Dodgers and the Blue Jays. But that surprised me. Outside of that, I mean, I think the Dodgers were ultimately the favored team for a reason.
Yeah. Dylan Hernandez just tweeting, Roki Sasaki is the most talented pitcher Japan has ever produced. So this is a guy that's well-sourced over there and isn't, just saying things to say things. And when you think about some of the guys that have come out of Japan, notably a gentleman that pitches down in San Diego and has been one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball for a long, long time. Now, he says he requires further development if he's to become the best Japanese pitcher of all time, but he says he is the most talented pitcher of all time. And so positive stuff there. Dr. Cole, $10 super chat, helping pay for the contract. We appreciate you. I think if we might be there, if I look at the super chats we've got, Matt, we might be at Roki Sasaki's contract for 2025. So we appreciate you with that. Timmy says we got Roki without having to trade Josue. DePaula was the ref. There was reports the Dodgers are going to need to go trade some more for more international free agency money. I found it hard to believe that DePaula was going to have to be moved in something like that, but they did not have to trade him. At least as far as we know by now. Lucas Higgins says, we got him, boys. I knew he was never going to San Diego between Darvish being as old as Scotty and the ownership being in shambles. Best show around. #back.
Man.
Yeah. Are you cooked like you, Darvish, Scott?
This is it, man. This is Matt knows. He's giggling over here. This is it now. Everybody's saying one person calls me old. I tell everybody I'm 32, and that's just it.
Matt and I won't tell you how old we are, because if you're cooked at 32, we're in trouble.
I guess I'm older than everybody here. That's how it goes.
We need to let Scott off this stream. He has dinner reservations at Marie Callender's, right? That's 4:00. That's your eating time.
I do have to go pretty soon, but not right now.
By the way, I'm with you on Marie Callender, Scott. Solid stuff right there. Nice pies. There you go. Benito says Roki of the year. Let's go Dodgers. It's pretty good. And yeah, I mean, he's going to be, I bet once odds come out on Rookie of the Year, I would imagine that Roki Sasaki is going to be because he's a Dodger and because he's the public guy. Like, he's probably going to be the favorite. Should he be the favorite remains to be seen, but I think he's going to be the favorite just because of name recognition.
But that's what, and I know Scott was alluding to it right now. Like, it's important to remember, as much excitement as there is, as much as, you mentioned Dylan Hernandez touting Sasaki as the best pitcher out of Japan, he still is only 23 years old, one, and he still is making an adjustment coming to the major leagues. And so I think Yamamoto was much more polished than Sasaki is in making his MLB debut. And we all saw how that went. And I know there were a lot of concerns and there were some bumps along the way, but ultimately Yamamoto did find his place. And so I know there's a lot of excitement. I know there's a lot of anticipation, but I think we need to also temper some of the expectations, especially early on, because it's not, whether it's Sasaki or a 10-time All-Star, like very few pitchers get through a regular season kind of unscathed. And so I think it's worth remembering that there might be some growing pains. That's not to say, yes, Jeff, I agree with you. I think his name is going to be mentioned as a Rookie of the Year favorite. And he certainly has the potential to do it. But if he doesn't, it doesn't necessarily mean that the season was a failure for him by any means.
Totally. Yeah, and Lance Brozdowski, who's a pitching guy we've had on our show a number of times. I'm sure I'll have him back on in the next week or two. He was one of the ones to say, like, I don't know if they're what the realistic expectations are for year one. He threw out the idea of just he's going to be on an inning limit, possibly. Like, he's coming off of a season last year where he struggled with some injuries. Velocity was down a little bit. And so there are no long-term concerns with Roki Sasaki. But he wondered if there's like almost like a hybrid bullpen role that Sasaki kind of comes into in 2025. Again, there's pure speculation here, but for somebody like that to suggest something, I think it's just a data point to throw into the pond. Again, he's going to be a serious contributor for the Dodgers, as a number of people pointed out. Yes, it's a minor league contract, which is good news. Doesn't need to be added to the 40-man roster yet. And yet he will not be throwing pitches in Oklahoma City. So apologies to any Comets fans that are in here looking forward to seeing Roki Sasaki. You will not be seeing him throw any pitches this year unless it's on a rehab assignment or something, which let's hope that's not the case. David Sabatini says, yeah, baby, love the signing of Roki. So happy I may go to the Lamplighter for a couple to celebrate. Good for you, man. Go get yourself some Clams Casino or whatever you got. Some lemon aioli calamari, David. Good for you. But we got Dylan says Rohei Yama Otani. So there you go. Rohei Yama Otani. Scott, what do you make this morning? John Morosi went on MLB Network, said that Sasaki was impressed by the Dodgers, which but said like kind of Yamamoto, he was singled out as a guy that played a big role in this. Obviously not somebody Sasaki was unfamiliar with, but that the two of them connected as part of Sasaki's visit to Los Angeles. What did you make of that report in particular?
I didn't read that report, but just from thinking about, Yamamoto's transition over, I'm going to bring up just what you said a couple minutes ago about, perhaps having, Sasaki could be the most talented pitcher coming over. Yamamoto is perhaps the most decorated one. 3 straight Triple Crowns, 3 straight MVPs, 3 straight what they call the Cy Young. That's insane production. And for him to step over just after that first start in the Korea series, I believe, then everything was stellar. His track record all the way throughout the year, besides the injury, he transitioned incredibly well here. And if by that report that Yamamoto played a big role, I think a lot of that matters. Darvish came over quite a bit of time ago. I'm just going to stick with the Dodgers aspect. I just think it says a lot about the recency bias of Yamamoto immediately coming over, joining the Dodgers, expectations, having that contract for Yamamoto and being able to keep that cool and saying, from what I would think, that you're in a comfortable spot. They're not going to push you. They're going to only ask you what they believe you should be doing and how to get to exactly where you want to be. And just like we've all talked about, and our chat's very knowledgeable on this too, the Dodgers aren't going to push a player when they just don't have to. They're not going to stretch it thin. So I love the fact that Yamamoto played a very key role in this. If that's what actually happened there from, what John Morosi said, wouldn't want anybody better because he came over, a lot of expectation. And to think that Yamamoto has the richest contract for a starting pitcher in league history, and to go ahead and just spearhead that and be that big role, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, I think another thing, sorry, Jeff, but to your point, like you've been on this for a while of, touting the Dodgers basically becoming a destination for players. And I think this is another example of it. And for a lot of the reasons you just outlined.
Yeah. I've told people before, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I was talking to some friends about the Portland Trail Blazers last night, and they were like, are the Blazers ever going to be good? And I was like, they aren't, because for teams in markets like that, all they can do is draft players and develop them and hope that they stick around. But if you live in a place like Los Angeles, if you have the success that an organization like the Dodgers do on the MLB side, the reputation that the Dodgers do, like if all other things are equal, which in the case of Roki Sasaki, they were, nobody could really pay him dramatically more money than the next or give him a longer contract or anything. All things equal, how could you not pick A, one of the most beautiful places in the world to live, B, the team that has the greatest chances of winning multiple World Series over the course of your 6-year contract, and C, the organization that is at least in the top 3 to 5 as far as ability to develop you over the next 6 years before you do sign the biggest contract imaginable. And so when you level everything else out, Matt, to your point, to the point that Scott has been making, like the Dodgers are a destination. And Major League Baseball, there isn't just one ball that all these guys have to share. And so you can stockpile 5, 6 starting pitchers because those guys aren't actually competing against one another and having to share anything. And so that's the beauty of the Dodgers, Scott, is yes, their rotation is stacked, right? We know that. And yet, like having Blake Snell in the 1 spot has no impact on who you throw in the 5 or the 6 spot. And that's the glut of riches that the Dodgers have. And, you know, to the point of some people in here, like there's people around the league that are gonna hate this, Scott. They're gonna be pissed, not gonna watch baseball anymore. Like, what would you say to those folks, Scott, given the sort of the Avengers that the Dodgers have just assembled?
You just watched the Los Angeles Dodgers build just an absolute super team and do exactly what a organization that prints money should do. Spend money on the product, continue showing up for the fans. The fans expect greatness. The players just put up greatness. They just had a World Series season, and just being okay in one World Series is not enough. They're telling you exactly what they're doing. That does not happen when teams can go out. The Red Sox have done it. They say we're going full throttle. They don't do anything. If you're going to do it, if you're going to say you're going to do it, be about it. Go pay these guys. You have the money to do it. You can stretch the limits of the payroll. Go do it. You want to build the farm system. You tout yourself as just an absolute, like we said, destination spot for international prospects. Make it so. Do it all. You have the ability. You have the resources, and it's all. This is the golden era. They were correct. Spot on.
Special guest Anthony Witrato joining us. It's such a special day that we get a real background on Anthony Witrato. No virtual background today. So, Anthony, good news. Roki Sasaki is a Dodger, and from by all accounts, he's pretty good at baseball.
Man, a little under the weather, so pardon the voice. And I'm out of town on a work trip, so I'm in a hotel. But when Matthew texted me, if I was available to pop on, and I immediately went to Twitter because I had not heard yet. And the first tweet was something from MLB Pipeline. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, maybe the Dodgers were the betting favorites to land this guy. But the fact that he's coming and the news hits like that, just unbelievable. I am hyped. My brother is like, yo, season tickets, let's do this.
I love it.
I am super excited that this rotation has the potential, maybe not next season, but let's say like maybe the year after that, has the potential to be up there with like that Phillies rotation that won a World Series, like just some of the dominant top to bottom rotations we've ever seen. The talent is on this team now.
Yeah. I mean, look, Matt, we're looking at Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, Clayton Kershaw when he signs. And then we haven't even gotten into sort of all the other young guys, that are going to be thrown into the mix here as well. And so to Anthony's point, I mean, I don't know how long we have to wait, Matt, until this becomes, I mean, Jake Peavy was on MLB Network a couple weeks ago saying it was the best rotation in baseball. And then they added Sasaki to it.
Yeah, and that's what, when Anthony texted me about the rotation, I kind of joked with him. I was like, yeah, and that's the Dodgers haven't even re-signed Kershaw yet. I think, the
I
domino
appreciate that joke. I'm sure there's people that just hate you for that.
The domino effect too is in some sense, like it also maybe takes some pressure off of Bobby Miller. And I know he's not popular in the eyes in the eyes of many fans because of how last season went. I think it's important to remember that he did deal with, some knee issues throughout the season. And so if he's somebody, maybe there's less pressure on him at the beginning of the season and he kind of is able to turn things around. And unfortunately, invariably, when, shoulder inflammation pops up for somebody at some point during the season, you have a lot of depth now. Right. Yeah. And it's with Sasaki, like it's one pitcher, but the domino effect, like the ripple effect, I think is much more than just one actual rotation spot.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but I was texting with somebody who is very well connected to the Dodgers, and yesterday asking about Sasaki, and we were going back and forth. And the one name he mentioned was nobody's talking about Bobby Miller, and just kind of left it at that. So who knows? Who knows? Could be a good bounce back. Let's get to some super chats here. Stockton Slap says last thing to do is another reliever and Kike. Let's rapid fire this. Scott, is Tanner Scott going to be a Dodger in 2025? Yes or no?
Sure.
Matt?
Sure.
No.
Anthony?
No.
Okay. I'm going yes. Like, who else is going to sign him? Somebody's got to sign this guy. The Mets just went and signed their left-handed reliever. So there we go. Also, Stockton Slap talking about, I know there's no cap. Where does it end? $200 million a year. Again, keep in mind, this guy's getting the league minimum for the next 3 years and then basically nothing for the 4th and 5th year. 6th year is when he'll finally get close to sort of market value on a 1-year deal. Matt?
And I think the other thing with all the discuss, and now it's not the show to really fully dive into it, but if you want a salary cap, with that is also going to come a floor, and owners then are going to be forced to spend more aggressively than they have historically shown. And is that something they want to do? I would argue no. But so, it's not just hey, we can, go to the union and say we're going to put in a salary cap now to really even things out, because they're going to come back and say, okay, well, then every team needs to be at this bar, and that bar is going to be much higher than 10 to 12 owners in baseball.
Name some teams, Matt. Come on, throw some people under the bus. Pirates.
That's where this thing is dead in the water whenever that conversation comes up, because one, the players union will never go for it, but two, the salary cap is essentially for a handful of teams that threaten it, right? It'll be the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets, the Red Sox, those kinds of clubs. So you're talking about the upper third of teams, let's call them 10. And then what that forces is the bottom third, the bottom 10 to have a salary floor. And those owners absolutely will not touch that, because the salary cap for them is meaningless. The Pittsburgh Pirates are not going to threaten the salary cap. The A's aren't going to. Even when they move to Vegas, I'm willing to bet that they don't touch it. But what it's going to force them to do is spend. And they don't want that. So when they go, the salary cap doesn't affect us. We don't have, it's not of our concern, but now you want to raise our floor and we're going to have to put out, tens of millions of more dollars. No, we're good. We're voting no. And it's dead in the water there.
Well, and keep in mind, as some people have pointed out on social media, the reason the international free agency setup is the way that it is, the reason that Roki Sasaki isn't getting paid over the next 6 years and could only sign for a certain amount. Do you think it was the Dodgers that created that system? Like, no, it was the Pirates, and all those teams that don't want to have to pay these guys are the ones that created the system that ironically actually led to him becoming a Dodger. So these things always work themselves out. And guess what? The saddest part is the poorest owners aren't nearly as mad as their fans are today, because all they care about is collecting that revenue sharing check at the end of the year and not actually trying to win. That has been made abundantly clear.
And this makes the Dodgers revenue stream stronger.
Yeah.
Which means those bottom teams are going to get more money.
Yeah, it's a good point. Scott Ray says, as a senior citizen myself, 35 years old, he feels your pain. Love the show. Again, if 35 is a senior citizen, Moreno and I are in trouble. And Anthony, I think Anthony might be the oldest one on here.
Scott has suddenly surged to the oldest person on our staff. So Jeff,
not even close.
We need to just let that keep sliding by.
Daryl says, Scott, don't feel bad. I was 32 a long time ago. So happy to be a Dodgers fan. Let's go.
I say I'm tired. I say I'm tired at 8:31 time last night. And people that's it. That was all.
Yeah. Vin says, guys, I'm 35 too. That's not old, but maybe we can sit down for a bit. There you go. Yeah, we need a break. Everyone take a break. Scott's got to go get his prune juice off air. So hold on one sec. Let's get back to that.
Yeah.
This is a great one, Matt. Jonathan says, love you guys so much. I'm missing out on watching Padres, etc. podcaster tears just to be here. So we appreciate you, Jonathan. Shout out to the Padres podcasters podcasting through it. Hawaiian Kira, a faithful member of the Dodger Blue family. Great way to start the weekend. Congratulations to the Dodgers faithful and to Sasaki. And shout out to Laura, by the way, who had a super chat on Sunday's show predicting Friday as the day that Sasaki would sign. Or maybe that was Tuesday's show. But either way, she nailed it. So shout out to her. And then Wrexham asked Tanner Scott signing next. We just went over that. Scott and I say yes. Matt and Anthony say no. MR here. First time super chat, long time listener, fan of the show. Love the Roki news. Now just give me Kike and put a freaking bow on the off season. that's next year, right, Scott? Is Kike Hernandez. Obviously, Kershaw we know is like a sure thing. I think most of us believe that Kike Hernandez is going to be a part of this roster by opening day. Are you in that camp, Scott?
I would say so. Blake and I had a conversation about this last night. And I know Matt was, keeping tabs on it. He can add in here as well. If you look at like the starting roster and then you look at the bench, Blake mentioned that Kike Hernandez gets added. They could do some manipulation stuff if instead of, if Chris Taylor sticks around, which a lot of people, he's kind of convinced me that he will. Andy Paez could get sent down for some time. They could run a heavy bench there, but I don't think they'll do that with the 6-man. So I think that Andy Paez could get sent down. That's where the Kike Hernandez comes in. So yes, I believe that he's hanging out for the 60-man the 60 day to open. Roster spot opens up there. They'll figure some stuff out. Kike Hernandez will be a Dodger.
Anthony, you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. And look, there's a market for Kike Hernandez right now for what he does. The reason why there's no buzz is because I'm guessing everyone's been informed how this is going to roll out, and they want him back. He wants to come back. And they're just waiting for that spring training day to roll around so that way they can move the roster around a little bit and then add him. I have no doubt that he'll be back. And he really is such a valuable piece because he offers them so much flexibility in the different positions he can play. Aside from the October heroics, that just continue to happen, and it's kind of amazing. But the fact that he offers that flexibility for them, they definitely want him back, and there's a reason why you're not hearing any buzz about Kike Hernandez on the hot stove.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, Anthony. I think it's a great point. I know you've got to run. You're on business, not vacation, but we appreciate you hopping on, fighting through. Get yourself a couple cough drops over there, okay? Wherever you are, if they sell some cough drops, make your way down there and 7-Eleven, Slurpee and some cough drops, okay?
I think Anthony's going to go for a liquid treatment maybe, and comes in a small glass, and it might do the trick also.
Tequila and cough drops, is that all right?
There you go.
Yeah. Dr. Scott says Dr. Scott's old enough to have been through med school. So he says,
there we go. There we go.
So,
all right. Hold
Anthony,
it down,
we
fellas.
appreciate you. We appreciate you hopping on. Enjoy the rest. We'll talk soon. David chiming in here, by the way. He's got underwear older than Scott. So there you go, David. Don't wear that to the lamplighter, okay? Maybe just keep that around the house. Let's not get that outside here. Matt, let's get back to Sasaki, the player. Almost 5,000 people in here live with us. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much for hopping in. We know sort of what the Dodgers could have offered all along, not financially, but just from a team, the 6-man rotation, like the development, all that kind of stuff. Do you think, is that how this plays out from the get-go in your estimation? 6-man rotation, Sasaki's in the major league rotation, part of that group, and the Dodgers just sort of roll with it from day one? Or do you think this kind of gets slow played and maybe we don't see Sasaki kind of in that role right out the gates?
I think that it is what they're going to go with pretty early on. I mean, it was certainly going to happen. Dave Roberts, they haven't necessarily committed to a firm timeline for Ohtani's return to the rotation, but assuming that was in May, Dave Roberts had indicated it would be May. And so with that being the case, they had sort of acknowledged, whether it was Andrew Friedman, Brandon Gomes, sort of admitting that, yes, the expectation is we will do a 6-man rotation this season. And I think the other factor too is Yamamoto is still accustomed to being on that type of schedule as well. Then you layer in, this isn't going to be, this approach, philosophy, whatever you want to call it, is also not going to be anything new to the Dodgers. They have run a pseudo 6-man rotation for 3 years now, well, right?
Hey, not if you ask them, Matt. Not if you ask them.
Right, of course, yeah. That's why I said pseudo. It's off the books. It's unofficial. But they always look to give their starters extra rest whenever possible. It doesn't matter who it is. So I think they're comfortable with that, and I think they're able to certainly articulate that and pitch it to, whether it was Yamamoto last offseason and now Sasaki this offseason, of, hey, this is how it's going to work. This is how we'll ease you into things. This is how we'll keep you on your usual schedule. And oh, by the way, have you heard of Yamamoto? Have you heard of Ohtani? I think you guys know. Yeah, you can play with them, and we can go win at least a World Series or two.
Scott, do you think those types of things were ultimately the difference maker for a guy like Sasaki as he's making this decision, as he's chatting with his agent, Joel Wolf?
I would say it mattered heavily. I would say this transition, it mattered. The same consistent thing we've talked about. You don't want to overwork him. Everybody else, other teams are saying, you go there, that you be the pillar. You be the number 1, number 2 in the rotation. Even through the Padres, he'd be the number 3, perhaps number 4. But if you're talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers, Sasaki I just had it pulled up here, through 111 innings last year. In 2022, he threw 129. So if you're going off of as far as his workload, you're going to provide him some ability to, if they want to skip a start, if they want to push him back, if they want to give him some time here and there to kind of ease himself, you're going to see his fastball took a step back in 2024. You could talk about a lot of, evaluators just say one of the biggest keys is it looked a lot straighter, lost a couple ticks on it, but he still boasts one of the best splitters you'll ever see. Like perhaps he steps in onto the mound in 2025, and you will see, I would say, the best splitter in Major League Baseball. So I would say you've got to find a way, unless they figure it out in spring training, Jeff, having that leeway with the 6-man rotation, the extra arms that can come up, give somebody a spot start, push all the timeline back. It's going to allow him to stay kind of on that buildup that he's still going to be on. And I think that played into it. I would say it played a pretty big role in kind of that soft landing spot that we felt was such a big thing.
We got some news here from Kylie McDaniel, and this is a report that I was honestly waiting to see. We mentioned the Blue Jays trading for some international free agency money earlier. Were the Dodgers going to respond? Turns out they have. McDaniel reporting that the Dodgers have traded Dylan Campbell to the Phillies in a trade that includes international bonus pool space per a source. Campbell was a 4th-round competitive balance round pick in 2023, spent last year at high A. 703 OPS, kind of a utility guy, 22-year-old outfielder there. So, Scott, I'm not surprised. I wonder if this is the last trade we're going to hear about, Scott, or if the Dodgers had a couple moves in place. Hey, Sasaki, if this is ultimately where you want to be, you say yes or no, and we kind of can pull the trigger on a couple moves here and there. Do you think there are more moves like this for the Dodgers to kind of maybe max out their international bonus pool, get it up close to that $8.5 million range?
Could be. That could definitely be. I mean, they were on the low tier. I think the lowest tier coming into 2025. And I think, that could be the case if they just say, just like you said, if the destination is Los Angeles, how can you max that out there? Meet us where we're at with the money and just go from there, so that there's no wiggle room to say one way or another. Sure. I would, but look at the trade right here. It was a mid-40s prospect on the total thing, competitive balance pick. So it's not something that broke the bank, and it's something that helped them land Sasaki.
Yeah, and there was some eyebrows raised when there was reports of Josue DePaula possibly being moved in an international free agency trade. I think, Matt, we can kind of put that rumor to bed if the fact that Dylan Campbell, a guy that, I'm going to be honest, had to Google, had to see what level of the Dodgers organization he was playing in, didn't find him in the MLB pipeline, top 30 prospects within the organization list. Like, if he's the guy that moves, and we don't know the number yet, but I think this puts back into perspective maybe how easy or difficult it was going to be to acquire some international free agent money.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this is probably the type of, I would be surprised if there was another trade that the Dodgers make for more bonus pool money. I mean, maybe it's something along the lines of this. I don't anticipate there being anything like significant, and who knows? I mean, maybe Campbell ends up netting them a pretty decent return in terms of money. There isn't a dollar amount yet that is that's been reported, and so we'll have to kind of see. But I mean, I don't really see the Dodgers at this point really looking to get maybe a bunch more money. Obviously, they could trade up to 60% of what their initial total was. I think it's like $5.6 million or so, if I'm remembering correctly. But I mean, I think it would be minor stuff.
Yeah, and again, this move is clearly made in conjunction with the agreement to Roki Sasaki. Like, clearly, this is not something the Dodgers, Sasaki's here, great, let's go trade for more international free agency money. My guess is the negotiations with Sasaki involved, hey, if you decide to come here, we've got some moves in place. There had been some reports that the Dodgers had some tentative agreements in place for international free agency money if the need arose, and it arose because Roki Sasaki is a Dodger here. So, again, if you're just joining us, almost 5,000 people on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, we appreciate you joining us. The headline here is the 23-year-old phenom Roki Sasaki is going to be a Los Angeles Dodgers. He announced the news himself on Instagram. Scott, we were talking about this. I kind of speculated that he would announce it himself based on how tight-lipped this whole operation has been. There have not been leaks. There have not been rumors or sources kind of in any direction. And so much like Shohei Ohtani a year ago, he gets to announce the news himself on Instagram.
like we were talking about beforehand, before we hopped on stream, I love the fact that players are doing this now, taking upon themselves to announce these moves where they're going to spend the next couple of years of their life where they're going to be competing. Blake and I joked last night. I was like, I hope he posts like the most grainy photo of a Los Angeles Dodgers logo, but he puts a beautiful, Dodgers cap there. And here we are. But I love that. That's, it's been one of my favorite things about off-season signings recently is that players are announcing stuff themselves. It doesn't have to come through, some beat writers here. If it does, cool. But I just love when they have players announce it themselves. That's just a cool thing for me to see.
Yeah, I'm with you. Scott, I know you got to go. Rumors of dinner reservations creeping up on you here at 401. So we appreciate
we got to meet the new softball team. We got to meet the new softball team for my daughter. So that's where we're headed. Coaching duties,
Okay. Well, enjoy the rest of your night. Best of luck to her. And we will chat with you soon. Matt, you and I are going to stick around for a little while longer. We'll take some questions here in just a moment. But I mean, just to sort of, before we get to questions, where are you at? Like, we've got 45 minutes. We kind of were waiting. Boom. It happens. Roki Sasaki is a Dodger. We've now kind of heard the flood of it's bad for baseball. It's rigged. The Dodgers have known about this for 18 months, yada, yada, yada. Like, expectations high, expectations low. He's young. Is he, there's all sorts of places that you could take this, but how do you sum up kind of how you're feeling right now with this news?
Well, I texted you guys semi-jokingly that some relief because I was feeling a little guilty that my wife and I have plans to go to Disneyland tonight. And I was thinking, man, like if he announces while we're there and that like we're going to have enough guys to rotate and get everything covered. So thank you, Roki, for taking that off my plate. And if you see me at Disneyland tonight, yell out Roki and I'll know that you were watching the live stream. No, but in all seriousness, I do think that expectations need to be tempered a little bit, like I explained a little while ago. The talent and potential is certainly there. It doesn't mean it's going to happen from day one. It doesn't mean, and if it doesn't mean anything like his career will never get there. If it does, it doesn't mean he's never going to struggle at some point. Like it's a difficult sport and he is still only 23 years old. The other aspect in terms of, it's rigged and Dodgers have ruined baseball and they knew and this and that. I would point to Jeff, you and I discussed it, I think on our Sunday show, the international signing period. What is that? Though there are handshake agreements with by every team every single year for multiple years. I was sort of trying to politely dance around it. And you ripped the Band-Aid off and you said they're making these verbal agreements with 14-year-olds, signing them at 16 and 17. So, and every team is doing like it's not like the international signing period rolls around and the Dodgers sign every top prospect out of the Dominican Republic out of it. Like they're spread around to other organizations. The Dodgers missed out on a lot of marquee international prospects because they were waiting to see what was going to happen with Roki Sasaki. Now, did they have a strong feeling? Sure. And that's like, we kind of joked about it when it came out that the Padres were feeling optimistic. And I agree. Like I said, well, I'm sure the Blue Jays and Dodgers as the fellow finalists are probably optimistic as well. So yeah, I mean, I understand the discourse. With social media the way it is, like narratives quickly form, wrong information also gets out there. But in terms of this being a foregone conclusion, if you believe that, then I imagine that you are up and screaming and stomping up and down every single year when the international signing period rolls around, because those are a lot of verbal agreements that magically get finalized as soon as it opens. Like these kids are agreeing to not always millions, but big signing bonuses. And just because, on a gut reaction, like, no, like those are worked on behind the scenes. And if I know it's not allowed, MLB, has rules against it, but it does happen. Yeah.
So I just want to confirm, are you all in on tinfoil hat theory with me over the last 12 months here?
So I think that the Dodgers knew they had a very good chance at Sasaki. I think that there were indications of, yes, once I'm posted, like I probably will sign or I would be strongly interested. I don't necessarily think it was a complete foregone conclusion.
Okay. Yeah. Look, I have joked at times about the Dodgers possibly having an agreement in place and Joel Wolf being told by Major League Baseball, hey, we need to make this seem like it's a fair process. We need to make this seem like it's not rigged for the Dodgers. So let's move it out. I mean, maybe they should have kept it in 2024 when the Dodgers had the most money and you could make a better argument then, but they move it to 2025. He gives these press conferences. Oh, big market, small market. We're looking at everything. I don't know about some of these markets because of the media availability in Japan and how they treated him. And, you Darvish, we love you, Darvish. I'm not sure if that's going to be an impact. Like, he just said all the things you would say if you were trying to make this out. They go visit Toronto. They go visit San Diego. My favorite part of the story, the little San Diego Padres video leaks, and then it gets removed. It's like, hey, let's get that out there. He's down in San Diego. Oh, nope, we'll take it back. The slow elimination of all these finalists, and then finally he picks the Dodgers. Do I actually believe that's what happened? I don't know. I've said all along that nobody knows anything about Roki Sasaki. They did a really good job, in my opinion, Matt, of keeping things close to the vest. There were no leaks in this. There were all sorts of people that thought they had sources, but as I've said all along, everybody was reading the same tea leaves. The Dodgers made the most sense. We all predicted he would be a Dodger, but whether or not that's because he had actually made an agreement months and months and months ago, we'll never know, I guess. We'll never know. Real quick, by the way, MLB Pipeline just put out an article kind of with a scouting report on Roki Sasaki, because I know everybody knows kind of that he's very good. How much do we know about it? 6'3", 23 years old. Compared to, I thought this was interesting in here, some scouting directors. There's one comparison to Ohtani, the pitcher, just as far as like, he reminds me of that. Another one, how about this? He reminds me of Noah Syndergaard when he was fresh. So you could have just said before he was ever a Dodger. The fastball has been up to 102 miles an hour, averages just a tick under 99 in 2023, dropped to 97 in 2024. He's got a splitter that's a plus pitch. He's got a slider that's a plus pitch. I mean, he strikes a ton of guys out. He doesn't walk guys. He doesn't give up hits. He's control over command kind of a guy. So he has everything you want, I guess, is the best way of summing up Roki Sasaki. If you were building a pitching prospect in a lab, you would want this type of frame. You would want this type of height and length, as well as, again, the ability to control the baseball and throw it as hard as he has. So great news for the Dodgers. Let's get to some more. We do have one more super chat. Rusty says, all I wanted for my birthday today was the Sasaki signing announcement. Greetings from Orange County, California. Thank you, Rusty. We appreciate this super chat. We did have this from John Durr earlier, Matt, which I thought was interesting. If Sasaki were to win the Rookie of the Year, the Dodgers could actually net the 31st overall pick. That's a new deal from Major League Baseball. I believe just last year was when it was instituted. Was it a couple years ago?
Whenever the new CBA went into it. So yeah, okay. 2 years ago, because there was the
2 years ago.
And yeah, it was part of the new CBA.
Basically incentivizing teams to get their younger good players up and service time more quickly. There were all sorts of bonuses if you had a young guy who wins Rookie of the Year or is on, various teams, that kind of a thing. And so the irony of all this is not only the Dodgers paying nothing, but if he goes on to win something like the Rookie of the Year, Matt, the Dodgers could be well compensated for that.
Yeah, can you imagine all the screaming about collusion and it being rigged and this and that? Like, not only did the Dodgers sign Sasaki again to a team-friendly deal because he is bound by the amateur international signing guidelines and all that, and then they get a draft pick on top of it the next year. I can already see the tweets from the Pirates fans and the Padres and who else is. I don't know how the Blue Jays are taking this. I think maybe they're probably just disappointed that it's another kind of swing and a miss. I think the Padres are probably the fans, not the team, but the fans are wearing this one pretty hard because we were getting pretty frequent tweets about he's going to San Diego and this and that. And so, that I can imagine they wouldn't be too thrilled if the Dodgers end up with a draft pick next year.
Francis Romero reporting, by the way, that the Jack Campbell trade is netting the Dodgers between $750,000 and $1 million. And I'll note, it has to be done in $250,000 increments unless you're just giving away the remainder of your bonus pool. So my guess is the Phillies are just giving away whatever they had left, which is somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million. So there you go. That's the update on Campbell. And you said you think this is it. You're not necessarily expecting more of these international bonus pool trades to come out.
Yeah, I mean, not really. Maybe somebody that gets them an extra 500,000 type thing. I wouldn't, and I'm a little surprised. I mean, like, again, no, as Daniel would say, no disrespect to Campbell. Like, this stuff is hard to gauge, right? Because it's not all that common that you see international bonus pool money getting traded. So to kind of figure out and put a value, obviously, if the Dodgers traded Dalton Rushing, call it, for bonus pool money, then you can safely assume they're getting a pretty significant amount. But outside of situations like that, it's tough to really gauge what you would be receiving in return. And my gut reaction was they weren't necessarily going to get that much. And so, getting that report from Francis Romero is certainly more than I anticipated.
Jay Sane says, but Roki and Darvish are close. Haha. I joked when the report came out from John Morosi of Yamamoto and the connection that he had with Roki Sasaki. I was like, oh man, it's crazy that he might choose to play with the 26-year-old friend of his rather than the 38-year-old friend of his in Yu Darvish. Look, I'll say this. I think the Padres were a real threat, but I think my guess from the outside, that ownership situation is not nothing. Like I've said on this show, Joe Wolf would be accused of malpractice if his guy signed a 6-year deal to go to that organization, a team that has signed nobody this entire offseason, that is looking to offload some of their better players, Dylan Cease, Luis Arias, guys like that, and who has an ownership situation that's in total flux, Matt. And so, yes, I believe the Padres were real sort of threats to the Dodgers at one point, but I think the best thing, ironically, that happened for the Dodgers was the fact that the Padres ownership situation kind of fell apart.
Yeah, I think that was certainly a factor. I still also think that even if that wasn't the case, there was some uncertainty with just the direction of that franchise in general since Peter Seidler's passing. Like it was, by all accounts, he was the person who was motivated to really, compete against. It wasn't necessarily, and I know they haven't admitted this, they probably won't, but it wasn't like a front office wide, an organizational wide thing of, hey, we really want to compete and spend and this and that. Like it all kind of traced back to Peter Seidler. And so with his passing, like, and obviously, not being part of the picture anymore, like I think there was some concern and reason and questions as to, what direction is the franchise heading in this offseason. They haven't really done much. Not only have they not, they haven't done anything on the like major league roster side. Not only that, but there were reports of them looking to trade people from their roster as well. And so if you're looking at that, and look, if Sasaki, we've talked about it, like Sasaki, from Joel Wolf, from Dylan Hernandez, who has been out there and has, reliable, trustworthy information. Sasaki wants to be one of the greatest pitchers ever, right?
Yeah.
You do that by winning World Series. Like, yes, you can be very good on a bad team and get recognition as, oh man, like that guy's like, get him out of there. He's a Cy Young caliber. He's all-star, this, that, and the other. Ultimately, though, if you want to reach the levels that it appears Sasaki wants to get to, you have to win World Series. And just looking at the Dodgers and Padres, like there is, I know we cover the Dodgers, so if you want to accuse us of I like to bring balance to our show, but objectively speaking, looking at the Dodgers and Padres, there is one team that is much closer to winning a World Series than the other.
Yeah, and you picked the Dodgers clearly to beat the Padres last year on this show, and everybody knows it. So,
thank you.
I thought Justin Lorber, a guy we have on our show, interestingly enough, he was talking about that the international free agency pool trade for Dylan Campbell. He wondered if the Dodgers might use that money to go and try and track down some of the international free agents that have not signed that were in their initial pool. My initial thought is I'm not sure if Joel Wolf and Roki Sasaki would love that if the Dodgers went out and got more money and then just sent it to other people and not to them. But what do you think? Like, do you think this trade was to give more money to Roki Sasaki, or do you think this trade was, to Justin's point, maybe to bolster the organization even further?
So I know I've shared some of this with you guys when we've texted about different things. Like I've gone back and forth on the whole money issue because, for one, like Sasaki coming at this time, like he already is giving up a ton in potential earnings because he's not going to sign the Yamamoto type deal. So at that point, like I could see it going both ways. Does an extra $1 million, does an extra $2 million make a difference when you're missing out on hundreds of millions? Maybe not. But because you are missing out on hundreds of millions, is the extra $2 million worth it? Because if you take that additional $2 million and you invest it, so like we don't know what he has planned for it, right? Like if he invests it somehow and then it makes money off itself, like that is valuable. And I could see it going both ways. I'm not up. I'm admittedly, like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I am very extreme up to date on the international free agents coming out of all these different countries. And so I don't know who is still available that maybe the Dodgers could go after. Would it fully surprise me if that was their plan? Not really, but I think the safer bet is certainly that they are just looking to maybe compensate Sasaki as much as they can.
Our friend Phil with the super chat here, he said, Roki, if they can't sign Scott, they should trade some of their starting pitching depth for a major bullpen arm. maybe Ryan Helsley. I mean, that's the other option. We talked about Tanner Scott earlier, but maybe that is the route they go, Matt. They've got, the Ben Kasperius type arms, Landon Knack type arms in the system. Is it possible that rather than going out and spending on a Tanner Scott, that they try and acquire a guy who maybe isn't going to crush them so much on the luxury tax and that can be had for what is now, not unnecessary depth, but depth?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. And that wouldn't look, they have a bunch of starting pitchers. And I know that I have also been the person saying they needed Sasaki +1 because they have run out of starters. But they have a lot of starting pitchers who are sort of in the same tier. And eventually that kind of that does get repetitive, especially if they're around the same age and this and that. Like, you're not going to have room for them. So yeah, I think Phil, is onto something. That maybe one thing I have always said that the Dodgers, Andrew Friedman does get accused of hanging on to prospects and this and that, but the Dodgers also trade from areas of strength, whether they're their 40-man roster or the farm system. And if you look at it right now, it is, organizational depth chart type thing. They have a stockpile of starting pitchers. And so, yeah, it wouldn't be completely surprising if they start trimming away at that to address other areas.
Shelly Lawrence, so happy our city needs this. Yes, they get the Rams win earlier in the week. Obviously, some good news here. So I imagine there are people that this is a welcome distraction. This is a positive thing. Obviously, it doesn't compare with what the city of Los Angeles has been through over the last week or so. But, look, nobody around Major League Baseball is going to necessarily agree with this sentiment. But I'm sure there's lots of people that this is a bright spot when they much needed it.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that really quick because I was at the stadium this morning, early afternoon, because the Dodgers, Lakers, Kings, Galaxy, Sparks, I think, are the teams that did it at Dodger Stadium. Kind of an event for those who've been evacuated, or if, unfortunately, if you've lost your home. And they were giving out a bunch of free merchandise. Vanessa Bryant was there with the Mamba Seed, the Sports Foundation, giving out free shoes. So a lot of clothes. It was a great event. Food, and what was surprising and uplifting to me was seeing how happy a lot of the kids were, because I can't imagine what they've had to deal with for the past, 10 days or so, however long it's unfortunately been, and the things that they have lost and the struggles. And so the Dodgers, that was just one event. There was also another one at SoFi Stadium, and there was a third one. I can't remember 100% where, but we do have interviews with Anthony Banda and Chris Taylor. Those are up on our YouTube channel already. I'll put together kind of a B-roll type thing so you could kind of see what was being distributed. We'll have that up over the weekend.
I love it. Let's get to a question here from Javier. He says, in your opinion, who will be the Dodgers starting rotation when the season starts by order? Order being the key here. I'll hold on to that order piece because the Dodgers are opening the season in Japan. They I don't know if you noticed this, Matt, they have 2 starting pitchers who are from Japan for a 2-game series, of which times have recently been announced. You can check that out on DodgerBlue.com. Do you think Yamamoto and Sasaki are starting games 1 and game 2 in some order? Yamamoto feels like a lock if he's healthy, right?
Yes, Yamamoto is the safer bet of the 2. Sasaki, I just don't like. There hasn't been, we were just discussing, there's not a lot of information really out there about him. If anything, it's been like he's kind of, I don't want to say turned off, I might be putting it too harshly, but he's been hurt or affected by media coverage of tragedies in his life. So do the Dodgers try to do him a favor and say, hey, we're just going to protect you from that, so that way you don't need to deal with that type of thing? And I know, and some of that too is Dylan Hernandez, somebody who's reported this in the past. There's a little bit of, from the Japanese perspective of, hey, Roki, you're leaving early before Yamamoto, Scott was listing all of Yamamoto's accomplishments. And one thing that I thought was interesting, Dylan Hernandez wrote about during the offseason was there's sort of an order of business, like Ohtani did it, Yamamoto did it, where you accomplish things with your team in Japan before you really go. And Sasaki was more kind of individual stuff that he sort of reached, not really team success.
Yeah.
So if there is, fear of potential backlash or just some harsh criticism, do the Dodgers say, hey, don't worry about it. We're not going to put that on your plate. I could see it going either way. I could also see MLB making a phone call and saying, hey, you have 2, Japanese starters. It would be great if they both pitched out there.
Yeah. And I mean, it's going to be so early in the season that it's possible that Sasaki comes in for a couple innings in one of those games. As all these guys are building up. As we pointed out, Sasaki did not have a full season. He hasn't thrown more than 122 innings in the last 2 years. And so if the Dodgers' goal is to win a World Series and for Sasaki to be available at the end of the regular season, you can imagine there will be some load management, to quote the NBA, by the time throughout the 2025 season. A couple more super chats here. Bob Nightingale, Padres feel optimistic about their chances, ... Psych. Yeah, tough one for our guy Bob in that one. And I joked, by the way, on the Bob Nightingale front, like Jack Harris wrote an article for the LA Times, and I joked about if you choose to read between the lines, knock yourself out. But I read Jack Harris's piece of him like, I can't officially report that this is a done deal, but he pretty much said as much as he could possibly say without saying it, in my estimation, Matt. So I think there were people on all sides who maybe felt optimistic, but it definitely felt like the people most plugged into the Dodgers, they weren't reporting it officially, but they were kind of getting as close as you could possibly get to the line, it felt like.
Yeah, and I still think for me, it comes back, like once you got down to the 3 finalists, each of them had to have felt some level of optimism, right? Because, it was reported that the Mets weren't optimistic, and then shortly after, the Mets are actually out of the running completely. The Giants knew they were out. The, who am I forgetting? Other teams. So
Rangers.
Yeah, the Rangers. But anyway, I know we have some reports of Sasaki's signing bonus, which I think ties back to the discussion we were just having about the trade.
Yep, $6.5 million is the deal, and so that basically means they traded Campbell for $750,000 to $1 million, and Sasaki's getting every single dollar of it. So $6.5 million, no more international free agency trades, at least connected to the Roki Sasaki deal, but he gets a signing bonus of $6.5 million. There's a portion of that goes to his team in the NPB as well, like a posting fee, if you will. I think that's separate from the $6.5 million. I think he gets 6.5, and then there's a 20% number that's paid or something along those lines. But $6.5 million, according to Fabian Ardaya. So no more international free agency trades, it seems, for the Dodgers, Matt.
Yeah, and I mean it makes sense. Like I said, I'm not plugged into the international prospects and who's available, who's not available. But one thing I do know about that market and how that works is the first day those players can sign the top guys, they pretty much usually do. And that's why, like I mentioned earlier, the Dodgers missed out on a few of their prospective prospects that would have been part of this class because they're waiting on Sasaki. And hey, I think in all 3 of those cases, those kids went on to receive larger signing bonuses with their new team. So, good for them.
Yeah, small market.
And I'm not saying that sarcastically, like genuinely, like good for that. Like it did pan out. I didn't want that.
Yeah, small market Dodgers getting outbid by the Pirates for some of these guys. They had a guy for 1.1, Pirates gave him 1.8. What are you going to do? It's an unfair system we live in, Matt. Sean Allen says, haven't lived there in years, but I love LA. Josh, Jim Bowden says the Dodgers should be investigated. Jim Bowden says lots of things. I'll just leave it at that.
Did he really say that? Let me see. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I guess it wouldn't. Yeah. Yeah. He hasn't tweeted anything in 6 hours. So unless it's in an athletic,
maybe he was
somewhere.
Either that, or maybe he was on MLB Network Radio or something.
Yeah, could be. So, all right, folks, that's going to do it for us. We appreciate everybody hopping in here on a Friday afternoon impromptu live show. That is Matthew Moreno. I'm Jeff Spiegel. Check out DodgerBlue.com for a full write-up on Roki Sasaki, the news that he signed, all sorts of details. As we get more information, again, the trade for international free agency money, the $6.5 million signing bonus, all of that coverage over at DodgerBlue.com. DodgerBlue 1958 on social media everywhere as well. If you're new around here, thank you for joining us for this. We go live anytime there's big news, and we're also live every Tuesday night, every Thursday night, and every Sunday night during the off season. We add a couple more shows once the regular season gets underway as well. So we appreciate you being here. You can subscribe, ring the notification bell. If you're a podcast person, Apple, Spotify, Google, search for the DodgerHeads podcast. Go ahead, do us a favor, rate, review, subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. Again, almost 5,000 people in here on an impromptu Friday show. Incredible stuff. But the good news, folks, Roki Sasaki, a member of the Dodgers through 2030. Again, league minimum contract for the next 3 years, arbitration the 3 years after that, all for a $6.5 million signing bonus. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. As always, go Dodgers. And still champs.